old are you?
4.
What's your favorite color?
Violet. Jesus is my heart. My Indy Decent. And this is my story.
I'm Amanda Deason, and I'm Indy's mom.
I'm Sam Deason, and I'm Indy's dad.
I am a registered nurse, and I work at a school.
I work in the oil field.
We had prayed for another child, and we were so excited to welcome a new baby into our lives. Little did we know how much Indy's life would impact ours.
She was laying on the couch, and she had just finished eating, and she cried out, and I went to go check on her, and she was blue around the lips. But she recovered pretty fast and turned back normal color. And then she did it one more time, and her respirations were kind of rapid. So later there, and we counted the respirations, and they still kept being rapid, but then she would recover. So I called my best friend, which is an RN too, and we kind of counted it, and then we called another nurse that was a newborn nurse, labor and delivery nurse. And she said that, it's better to be safe than sorry, of course. So that's when we ended up taking her to the emergency room. So they admitted her for observation, and she was still having a hard time. You could tell she was exhausted by that point. We really thought at that point she had some type of reflux, and so after they admitted her for observation, they sent us up to the floor, and they tried changing her formula. We were there that whole rest of that night, and the next day, the pediatrician came in and kind of checked on her that morning. The day before, we had actually been there at the doctor's office for her 1-week checkup. She was 7 days old. Everything checked out fine. Everything was normal. And then she ended up going into respiratory distress around 5 o'clock that afternoon. She had vomited one time, then her skin turned real ashy and gray, and she was pretty much laying lifeless on the bed when they all rushed in and brought in everything for a code. And I think that's about the time that Sam had walked in. He thought he was coming in to take us home. The pediatrician ended up bagging her for her to breathe for about 45 minutes before someone got there to intubate her, that the pediatrician trusted to intubate her.
Then they decided to lie flat to Shreveport. And then that was when the chopper left Nacogdoches, about 10 o'clock that night. So we drove from Nacogdoches to Shreveport. So we got there maybe midnight, 1 o'clock. They, I guess, immediately did an echo. They determined, or that they saw what the problem was, but they didn't do that kind of surgery there. They started naming different places that if we wanted to go, and Dallas Children's was one of them. And
that's when they sat us down. They had us actually sit down. They said, "We need y'all to sit down." Told us that she had a congenital heart defect, and that it was called a coarctation of the aorta. And what it is part of her aorta was kind of clenched off, and you have something called a PDA, a patent ductus arteriosus, and it's open until you're about a week old. And when that closes off, the blood flow is redirected, and so once that closed off, the blood had to redirect like a normal route would, and when it tried to redirect, her lower extremities were not getting any blood flow. So she would have to have surgery. She was already in multiple organ failure. She was in respiratory distress, of course. She was in heart failure. She was on a vent.
So then when he told us what she had, started naming the hospitals, we said, Dallas, if they're all the same, we'd rather Dallas, it was the closest. So then they set up a jet to come fly from Dallas Children's to Shreveport, got her, flew back to Dallas. They said one of us could go, but we didn't want to leave the other one driving by herself. This was 2 or 3 in the morning. So then we drove from Shreveport to Dallas.
Yeah, at this point, we had been awake for 48 hours.
We got there early daylight Friday morning. I remember them saying then that As long as she was getting stronger, they wanted to wait before surgery. And then she ended up, what was it, Monday when she had the surgery.
Yeah, she was 13 days old when she ended up having the surgery to repair her coarctation. I just remember praying to God whenever all this was happening. I just remember praying for me to find peace, and if I couldn't keep her, to just let me be at peace if He had to take her. So we ended up staying in Dallas for about a month. She had a fairly rapid recovery. We did have a few bumps in the road. She had a little trouble with her chest tube coming out and having some problems with her lymphatic tissues healing. But after that, she healed pretty quickly. We did have to have a few follow-up appointments with the cardiologist there in the beginning. Now we just go yearly to the cardiologist, and actually 1 in 100 newborns are diagnosed with a congenital heart defect. It's a very common thing that happens with newborns, and you never think it's going to happen to you until it does. And I mean, she's a healthy little girl that has no restrictions. She's just the joy of our life.